Tonight, I'll guide you gently into rest through a series of ancient stories drawn from the world of Greek mythology. But there is nothing you need to follow and nothing you need to remember. You can simply listen for as long as it feels natural. Lie down comfortably, legs extended, arms resting gently at your sides. And if it feels natural, allow your eyes to close. Take a slow inhale and a soft exhale. Allow your body to settle into the ground beneath you. If you need to shift slightly, you can do that now, and then gently soften into stillness. You'll be guided through a series of quiet stories, each one flowing gently into the next. There is no need to follow them closely, no need to remember. They are simply there, like distant shapes moving through the night. And as they pass, you can drift further and further into rest. And somewhere in that quiet, the first story begins. Before anything began, before there was a sky above or an earth below, before light had found a place to rest or darkness had learned how to fall, there was only what the ancient Greeks called chaos. Not chaos as we understand it now, not noise or confusion or anything broken or out of place, but something far quieter. A vast and open expanse that had no edge, no boundary, and no need to become anything other than what it already was. The word itself did not describe disorder, but a kind of opening, a gap, a gentle and endless widening where nothing had yet taken shape and where nothing was required to. There was no above and no below, no near and no far, no distance to measure and no form to compare, because there were no things yet to divide or define. No movement and no stillness, no before and no after, no sense of time passing, because time itself had not yet begun to move or unfold. And within that openness, there was nothing to hold, nothing to follow, nothing to understand, only a quiet and unbroken presence that remained as it was, without effort and without change. It did not reach toward anything, did not wait for anything, and did not move toward becoming, because there was nowhere to go and nothing it needed to be. And in that way, chaos was not empty, but complete. Not filled with objects or shapes, but filled with the quiet possibility of everything that would one day exist, resting there in a form that had not yet taken form, like a thought before it becomes clear, or a dream before it gathers into images, something present but undefined, something that does not yet need to be known. And if you try to imagine it now, there is no need to see anything or to picture a place, because it is enough to notice the space behind your thoughts, the quiet that remains when nothing is being held or followed, that gentle openness, that soft and unstructured stillness is not so far from what the ancients described, not something distant or unreachable, but something deeply familiar. Because chaos was not separate from experience. It was the most natural state before anything needed to change, before effort, before direction, before the sense that something must become something else. And perhaps there is something in that which already feels known, in the way the mind begins to loosen when it no longer needs to hold on to the day, and in the way thoughts begin to soften when they are no longer followed to their end. The way everything can begin to open, slowly and without force, as if it no longer needs to arrive anywhere or remain in any one place. In chaos, there was no urgency, no expectation, no movement toward an outcome, only a quiet and endless allowing, a state in which everything could remain exactly as it was. And within that allowing, something almost imperceptible begins to shift, not as a sound or a form or even a direction, but as the faintest suggestion that something could begin. Not yet fully, not yet clearly, but like a ripple before it reaches the surface, or a breath before it is taken, something gathering quietly within the same stillness from which it arises. And as that continues, without effort and without force, the openness remains unchanged, and yet within it, the possibility of form draws slightly closer, as if something is beginning to notice itself. And from that same endless quiet, the first gentle distinctions begin to appear, not yet seen and not yet named, but felt, like distant shapes forming slowly in the quiet. And from within that quiet openness, where nothing had yet taken shape and nothing was required to, there begins, almost without being noticed, a soft and gradual sense that something is no longer entirely without form. Not a sudden change, not a movement that breaks the stillness, but something gentler, as if the openness itself begins to lean ever so slightly toward becoming. It does not happen in a moment, and it does not arrive all at once, but unfolds slowly, like a thought that has not yet decided what it is, or a shape that is only just beginning to gather at the edge of awareness. And the first of these quiet presences, as the ancient poets described, is Gaia, not appearing as an object or a figure, but as a subtle sense of grounding, a gentle suggestion that something beneath can exist, something that can hold, something that can remain. Not yet solid, not yet formed, but felt as a soft and steady presence, like the idea of Earth before Earth has taken shape, a quiet foundation that does not need to move. And alongside that presence, just as softly and without disturbance, another begins to unfold. Tartarus. Not as a place of fear, not as something distant or dark in the way it is often imagined, but as a deepening, a sense of depth that stretches gently downward, an opening within the openness itself, as if the space that once had no direction now begins to suggest a kind of below, not defined, not measured, but felt as a quiet extension into something deeper. And this depth does not pull or disturb. It does not demand or resist. It simply exists, like a second layer of stillness beneath the first. And then, even more subtly, something else begins to move within that quiet forming. Not movement in the way we know it, not motion from one place to another, but something closer to a gentle drawing together, a soft inclination, as if what is beginning to exist is also beginning to relate. This is what the ancients called Eros, not yet love as it would later be known, not desire as something strong or consuming, but a quieter force, a presence that allows things to incline toward one another, to gather, to form connections that had not existed before, a kind of gentle attraction, not pulling, not urging, but allowing, as if the openness itself now contains within it the possibility that what begins to appear does not remain entirely separate. And with that, something new enters the stillness. Not a disturbance, not a disruption, but a soft continuity, a sense that what is emerging is not isolated, but part of a quiet and unfolding whole. Gaia remains, steady and grounding. Tartarus deepens, without edge or end, and Eros moves gently between them, not seen, not heard, but present in the way everything now begins to belong. And still, there is no urgency, no force pushing anything forward, no need for completion. Everything continues to unfold in the same quiet manner from which it began, without effort, without intention, without any sense that it must become more than it already is. And yet, within that stillness, something has changed. There is now a sense, however faint, that the openness is no longer entirely without distinction, that something can be felt as beneath, something as deep, something as gently drawing together, not defined, not separated, but present. Like the earliest moment of a dream, when shapes begin to gather without fully forming, and the mind begins to drift into something that does not yet need to be understood. And as these quiet presences remain, without effort and without resistance, another kind of presence begins to emerge, not as grounding, not as depth, not as attraction, but as something that gives the openness a sense of distance, a sense of shadow, a sense of what lies just beyond what can be felt. And from within that same quiet unfolding, where grounding had begun to settle and depth had gently opened, and where a soft inclination allowed things to belong, there comes another presence, not separate from what is already there, but arising from within it, not as a shape, not as a figure, not as something that can be seen or held, but as a quiet deepening, as if the openness itself begins to gather a sense of distance, a sense that something can now feel farther away. This is what the ancients called Erebus, not darkness as something heavy or overwhelming, not an absence that takes something away, but a gentler kind of shadow, a softness that allows things to recede, to move slightly out of reach, without ever being lost. And with this presence, something subtle begins to change. What once had no direction now begins to feel as though it can extend, not clearly, not in any fixed way, but as a quiet suggestion that there is a here and something just beyond it, not separate, not divided, but gently distinguished. Erebus does not move. He does not arrive. He does not take form in the way things later will. He simply deepens what is already present, like the way a horizon begins to appear, not because it is drawn, but because distance has begun to exist, or the way a room feels larger in dim light, not because it has changed, but because its edges have softened into shadow. And in that soft shadow, there is no fear, no tension, no sense of something hidden that must be revealed, only a quiet invitation to let things drift a little farther away, to loosen, to soften, to no longer hold everything close. And as this depth continues to unfold, it begins to give shape, not through form, but through contrast. What is near, what is far, what is gently present, and what is just beyond. Not separate worlds, but a single openness that now has layers. And within those layers, everything remains calm, unchanged in its stillness, yet richer in its quiet. Gaia rests, steady and without movement. Tartarus extends, deep and without end. Eros remains, gently allowing connection. And Erebus moves between them all, not as a force, not as a guide, but as the soft shadow that gives each of them space. And with that space, something else begins to become possible. Not yet a presence, not yet something that can be named, but a feeling that what exists can now be covered, held, softened even further, as if the depth itself is preparing for something, not by changing, but by allowing. And in that allowing, the openness grows quieter still, because what once stretched endlessly without distinction now settles into a gentler kind of vastness, not empty, not undefined, but softly layered, like the beginning of a night that has not yet arrived. And within that deepening stillness, where distance has formed and shadow has gently spread, something begins to gather, not from outside, but from within the same quiet, not as depth, not as grounding, not as connection, but as something that can cover all of it, something that does not push, does not pull, does not divide, but simply arrives. And from within that deep and quiet stillness, where distance had begun to soften everything that appeared, and where nothing needed to move and nothing needed to become, something begins to gather. Not suddenly, not in a way that can be clearly seen or marked, but as a presence that feels as though it has always been approaching, slowly, inevitably, without ever hurrying. It does not come from one direction, not from above, not from below, not from any place that can be pointed to, but unfolds gently across everything that already is, as if the openness itself begins to soften into something more, something that does not replace what exists, but surrounds it. This is what the ancients called Nyx. Not darkness as something empty, not an absence that takes something away, but something that covers, something that settles, something that allows everything to rest without needing to disappear. And as she arrives, nothing is disturbed, nothing is interrupted, nothing is undone. Everything that had begun to form remains exactly as it was, and yet everything feels quieter. Because Nyx does not change the world, she softens it, again, and then even more gently, like a veil that settles without weight, like a shadow that does not obscure, but simply calms what it touches, like a presence that does not need to be noticed in order to be everywhere. The depth of Erebus remains, but now it feels farther away, more distant, less defined, as if its edges have softened into something that no longer needs to be traced. Gaia still rests, steady, unchanging, but now she is held within something gentler, as if the ground itself has been given permission to relax. Tartarus still extends, deep, without end, but no longer as something that stretches downward. Instead, it simply rests within the same quiet. And Eros moves more slowly now, not drawing, not pulling, not guiding anything toward anything else, but allowing everything to simply remain, connected without effort. Nyx does not move across the world. She is already everywhere she touches, and everything she touches becomes quieter, not because it disappears, but because it no longer needs to be held so closely. What was once present can now drift. What once felt near can now soften. What once might have been followed can now be left. And within that quiet covering, there is no urgency, no expectation, no sense that anything must continue or resolve or become something clearer. only a gentle permission to let everything remain exactly as it is. And perhaps this is why the oldest stories spoke of her with such quiet reverence, not as something to fear, but as something even the gods did not disturb. Because Nyx does not resist, and she cannot be resisted. She does not take, and she does not give. She does not ask for attention, and she does not require understanding. She simply allows everything to soften again and again until nothing needs to remain held at all. And as she settles more fully, what was once openness, what was once depth, what was once the quiet beginning of form, is now held within something even more complete, not brighter, not clearer, not more defined, but more at rest, more distant, more free to drift without being followed, as if the world itself has taken its first slow breath, and now no longer needs to hold it. And within that first night, where everything is covered and nothing needs to remain awake, there are the faintest stirrings, not of movement, not of change, but of something that belongs only to this quiet, something that can only exist when everything has softened enough, when everything has been allowed to rest, when nothing is being held in place anymore. A gentler presence, a quieter rhythm, something that does not wake the world, but moves through it without being noticed. And within that first night, where everything has been softened and nothing needs to remain clearly held, Nyx continues to rest across all that has begun to form, not as something separate, not as something that arrives and then remains, but as something that simply is. And within her presence, the quiet depth of Erebus does not disappear. It does not fade. It does not withdraw. Instead, it settles more gently, as if the depth itself has been received, no longer something that stretches away, but something that rests within the same calm. And together, without movement, without effort, without any need to change, Nyx and Erebus begin to exist as one quiet harmony. Not joined, not combined, not made into something new, but no longer felt as separate. The softness of night and the quiet of depth, resting within one another, like a still surface and the space beneath it. And in that stillness, something begins to repeat. Not clearly, not in a way that can be measured, but as a faint returning, a gentle echo, a rhythm that does not move forward, but softly circles. Not time as it will later be known, not moments passing from one to the next, but something simpler, something quieter, a sense that what is can remain, and then remain again, as if existence itself begins to breathe, without inhaling, without exhaling, but simply continuing. And within that continuation, Nyx does not deepen, Erebus does not expand, and yet their presence feels more settled, as if what has already arrived is now arriving again, in the same way, without change. And this quiet returning, this soft and endless sameness, does not create repetition as something noticeable, but as something that allows the mind to stop following, because there is nothing new to track, nothing shifting, nothing moving towards something else, only a gentle and continuous presence that remains and remains and remains. And within that gentle rhythm, everything that had begun to form begins to feel even more distant, not because it has moved away, but because it no longer needs to be held close. Gaia rests without weight, without effort. Tartarus extends without direction, without edge. Eros remains, but no longer draws attention, no longer guides, no longer gathers. All of it simply resting within the same quiet. And Nyx continues to cover, not once, but again and again. Not in movement, not in repetition, but in a presence that does not need to leave in order to return. And Erebus remains within that covering as the quiet depth that allows everything to drift without ever being lost. And together, they create something that had not yet existed before. Not a form, not a place, not a world, but a condition, a quiet in which everything can rest without needing to remain aware. And within that condition, where nothing needs to change and nothing needs to continue, something begins to become even softer, not deeper, not quieter, but more distant, as if what remains can now begin to fade without disappearing, as if the presence of night and the quiet of depth have made space for something even gentler, something that does not hold, something that does not remain, something that allows everything to loosen even further. And within that same endless quiet, held by night, resting in depth, something begins to drift, not as a form that gathers, not as something that takes shape, but as a soft loosening, a gentle release, as if what remains no longer needs to remain so clearly. And from within Nyx, from within that same endless covering, there comes a presence, not separate from her, but carried within her quiet. This is what the ancients called Hypnos. Not sleep as something that arrives suddenly, not a moment that begins and ends, but a soft and gradual yielding, a quiet surrender, a way in which everything that was once held can begin to be released, not lost, not gone, but no longer needing to be followed. And as this presence moves, it does not travel from one place to another. It does not pass across the world. It simply deepens within what is already there, like a quiet settling that does not announce itself, like a soft weight that is not heavy, but allows everything beneath it to rest. And within that presence, what was once clear begins to soften. What was once near begins to drift. What was once followed no longer needs to be. Thoughts, if they arise at all, do not need to continue. They can begin and then fade before they are completed, like shapes that never fully form or sounds that never fully arrive. And this is the nature of Hypnos, not something that takes you away, but something that allows everything to fall gently out of focus, not by force, not by intention, but by a quiet permission to stop holding, And within that permission, the body itself begins to follow. Not all at once, not in a single movement, but slowly, gently, as if each part no longer needs to remain awake. The weight of the body settles without effort. The breath continues without needing to be guided. The space behind the eyes grows softer, more distant. And Hypnos does not ask anything of you. He does not require attention. He does not need to be noticed, because he is already present in the quiet that has been forming from the very beginning. Born from night, carried within her stillness, he belongs to the same gentle rhythm that does not move forward and does not need to return. And as that presence deepens, what remains can begin to loosen even further, not disappearing, not ending, but drifting without direction, as if everything that was once held together can now gently separate into something softer, something quieter, something that no longer needs to remain complete. And within that drifting, there is no need to stay, no need to follow, no need to remain aware, only the quiet continuation of a presence that allows everything to rest. And within that rest, something even lighter begins to stir, not clearer, not stronger, but more distant still, as if what remains can begin to move without being guided. And within the quiet of sleep, something begins to dream. Something begins to move, not in the way movement is known, not from one place to another, not with direction, but as a gentle drifting, a soft unfolding, as if what remains no longer needs to remain as it was. And within the stillness of Hypnos, where everything has been allowed to loosen, there arise the faintest impressions, not yet images, not yet thoughts, but something in between, like a feeling before it becomes a memory, or a shape before it becomes something seen. And these impressions do not arrive fully formed. They do not stay. They do not need to make sense. They begin and then gently change before they are completed. And this is the nature of what follows, what the ancients sometimes called dreams, not as stories that must be understood, not as visions that need to be remembered, but as something softer, something that does not ask to be held at all. And as they drift, they do not move in a straight path. They do not continue from where they began. They shift, they fold, they soften into something else, like light moving beneath water, or clouds that change without ever arriving. And within this drifting, there is no need to follow any one thing, because nothing remains long enough to be followed. What appears fades. What begins softens. What almost becomes dissolves. And in that way, everything remains gentle. Everything remains distant. And as this continues, the sense of where you are begins to loosen, not disappearing, not lost, but no longer needing to stay defined, as if the space around you and the space within you begin to feel the same. And within that sameness, there is no inside, no outside, only a quiet field in which things can appear and then soften again. And these quiet forms, if they can even be called that, do not belong to the world that came before. They do not follow its rules. They do not remain consistent. They are lighter, more fluid, more willing to change, like something that has been released from the need to remain whole. And as they drift, there is no need to understand them, no need to hold on to them, no need to return to them, because they do not belong to memory, and they do not need to remain. They simply pass, like something that was never meant to stay. And within that passing, everything becomes quieter still, because even the drifting does not need to continue. Even the softest movement can begin to slow. Even the faintest impressions can begin to fade. And as they fade, what remains is not emptiness and not silence, but something even gentler, something that does not form, does not move, does not appear, something that simply rests. And within that rest, there is nothing left to follow, nothing left to hold, nothing left to become. Only a quiet that continues without needing to be noticed. There is no moment where something ends. Nothing closes. Nothing completes. Nothing reaches a final shape, because there is no need for anything to arrive or to finish. What remains does not ask to be followed, does not ask to be remembered, does not ask to be held in place. It simply continues in the same quiet way it always has, without beginning, without direction, without any sense that it must become something else. And within that continuation, there is no distance to travel, no time to pass, no place to return to, only a soft and endless presence that does not need to be noticed. And if anything still remains, a thought, a feeling, a quiet awareness, it does not need to stay. It can loosen, soften, and drift in the same way everything else has, without being followed, without needing to return. And if nothing remains, that too is already enough, because nothing is missing and nothing is required. There is no next moment, no next step, no next place. Only this, which does not need to be named. And even this can begin to fade without disappearing, like something that was never held and never needed to be. And within that quiet, where everything has already softened, there is nothing more to follow. Only the same gentle openness that has always been there before anything began.